Ignite, from dreams to reality.
My name is Dr. Jumoke Odusi. I'm the Managing Director of Welcome House. We're a domiciliary care provider. WellCare is basically involved in the provision of domiciliary care, that is home-based care for older persons, that's old people, generally older persons that are frail and well, to a very large extent. People did not believe it could work in Nigeria. People did not think that Nigeria was right. I believed because I saw the opportunity, I saw the gap in the healthcare sector. I realized that there was nothing, Nigeria does not have any social security, there's nothing for aged people. And then it was at a point which Nigerians, the initial family, the traditional family setup was almost gone. Because now you have most people, most children schooling abroad, and then there's no family support anymore. So we work in a very difficult area, we work in a very difficult country. Difficulty everywhere, difficulty with personnel, difficulty with family members, difficulty with infrastructure, difficulty, everything. So, but what can only keep you going is that passion. And then of course I think the results are easy. I'm a pioneer in this field, and in the next 5-10 years, I see the industry now, that's the home care industry, growing very well. And then of course, I see the organization remaining leading all the way. Because on a daily basis, we're trying to improve, we're learning, we're getting better, we're strategizing. And so I see a very, very bright future, not only for WellCare Americans, but for the home care industry as well. It's one of the most important things. Whatever it is that you're doing, it's believe in it, it's passionate about it. I think one of the strongest things that's kept me going is passion. Passion for what I do. If there was no passion, I can't be here. If there was no passion, I cannot be WellCare. Because I think the challenges are just huge. I tell my staff, I said, even when I wasn't making a dime from running this business, I was still going on and doing everything I could do just to make sure that these people are happy, just to make sure that I provide enough support. And when you see results, it gladdens your heart. When you see people who have been left to die and then you come in and then you give life, you give hope. You see people that have been crying and wailing and then you come in and then they're happy, they can carry the gun. You know, it's when you see results, it gladdens your heart. So two things that will keep you going, results and then passion.
Ignite, from dreams to reality.
The other thing that I would want to add at the stage of planning is your interview process is very crucial. We've already talked about what you'll be looking for in advance. But when you actually come to speaking to people or interviewing people for what they want what they would do or what they would add to your organization, you need to be able to interview people in what you call an experiential way. So you're asking people about what they've done. You're asking people about, you give them a scenario and you say to them that, what would you do if you were the one in this situation? And that way you will be getting people, because a lot of people are professional job seekers. So they have perfect CVs and they would ace any interview because they know the right buzzwords to give you in the interview. But when you now start to ask them about, okay, on your CV, you're saying that you are a highly accomplished communicator. Can you please give me a few examples of where you've actually done this? Then they start saying, in my church, I help one or two of the pastors to, and then you say, okay, that is actually quite good because that's part of communicating. Can you expatiate? And then after 2 or 3 minutes, you find that what they are talking about is maybe they helped to give out the handouts during that particular program, that they actually didn't speak at all. So the interview is very, very crucial. And it has to be one that is based on experience. Because the best way to, to more or less, I mean, we cannot predict the future 100%, but to be safe is to find out what somebody has done before and what they are currently doing. That usually helps you to say that, okay, going forward, this person will actually perform. So that's very, very crucial.
Let me allow you to ask her one or two questions before she goes back into some of the fundamental things. Where we are now, any questions at this point?
My name is Madu Emmanuel Udoka. While you were explaining about kind of people you should employ, you talked about experience, they've worked in the past and where they have worked, and you talked about using practical questions to test their competence. But there's this question I want to ask. It is very important for somebody to gain experience, but how do you give such a person the opportunity to kind of learn more if you're not, if you don't give such a person the opportunity to come into your company or your establishment to kind of experience what he or she knows? Because there's supposed to be a platform where somebody comes in, no matter the kind of experience you have, you don't know it all. But sometimes when you go to some companies, they want you to have, do you have these? Where have you gone to? If you have not gone to, no, those kind of things doesn't really encourage people. So how do you help out? How do you help out somebody who wants to kind of express what he knows? Thank you.
We talked about look for people of multiple skills. Now, when I'm employing someone, maybe the guy is a web manager, and I employ him as a web manager. And he also has some skills at data entry. Now, and I employed another person with functional skills, maybe a CFO. Now, how can I justify the payments of the guy of a web manager and of a CFO? And I'm using that guy as a web manager, a data entry, and his wages is not up to a CFO. How would I justify the kind of payment?
I would like to ask, I own an automobile servicing company. I'm an auto mechanic. And in my line of business, it will be difficult for you to get someone that is highly skilled, technically, and well-educated to practice, because it's been seen as a practice for the uneducated.
Yeah.
And in expanding, it's so difficult for me to remain static, because I service my clients at home and in their offices. So I would need someone to be back at the workshop to look into this. And the only personnel you could get would be a semi-skilled. What I mean by that is, say, an O-level person, whereas you need someone that is highly technical to handle your clients, just in case you're not there. How do you resolve these issues?
Okay. I'll start with the first question. And when we talk about experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be experience that you've gained working. Like you rightly identify, some people are graduate employees. So you look for resourcefulness in the person, because if you have a mission which allows you to grow experience or grow people, you also want to be able to pick the right kind of people that will grow. Put it this way, you want to have a seed that will germinate. So you ask questions around, what did you do when you were in university? You look at what kind of things, were they just people that just went through the university, did not experience anything? Or do they have a lot of experience that they can give you from when they were in uni? Were they people some people, maybe their parents had a business. Did they ever go and help out in the business? Things like that is what you look for. So you look for some level of resourcefulness, some ability to be able to put something into something and get results out of it is what you look for.
Let me just chip something. Your question really is about people looking for work that don't get it because they don't have experience. I know that's what you're getting at. Now, she's giving you the employer side of it, which is what we really need for here. Now, but to also add to that is it depends on the vision of the employer. If imagine a one-man business that wants to move to the next stage. And he wants one person who needs to have certain skills to back him up so that they can move the business to the next stage. He doesn't have the time to train because he can't afford it. So for a small business, it is more difficult to take on a green on and build on. Now, when you can afford it, you can take on, and sometimes it's because you can't even afford it, that you take on green ons. And in that case, you know you're going to invest in building them up, but you know the kind of backup that you just need from them. And then you take the time to develop them. There are businesses that are like that. When I was starting a security door line of business, there was no precedence. We needed mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. But that business didn't exist in Nigeria before then. So no mechanical engineer or electrical engineer had exposure to that product line. The only basic knowledge they could offer was to have an engineering degree. And it turned out that even with the engineering degree, it was like a 0 level. After I sent the first 2 employees to Italy for training and they came back, over the first year, we realized that beyond having an engineering degree, the BScs were not as useful as the HNDs.
It's true.
True.
It's true.
Because they were not as technically attuned or interested in the technical direct skills work involved in the engineering of the product. And we changed strategy totally. And from that point, we decided we were not employing BScs anymore. We would only take HNDs, but none of them came with the skill. We would have to build the skill anyway, but we worked out a plan to survive as a business with the service over the period that our own people were gaining the skills. Until tomorrow, we don't take BScs anymore. We only take HNDs. At a later stage, we felt that there were some minor works that the HNDs, it was a waste of their time for us to keep them doing those jobs. And we went to search for City and Guilds guys who were just pure technical, and they were better suited for that job. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it depends on the company. And we have areas of our jobs that you take green ons, but there's some fundamental things. And where it's not about skill, it's about personality. If you want to get a sales team that doesn't know the product you want to sell, what am I looking for? Charming, warm, friendly, engaging. At that point, I look for character, because for me, as a company, in my company, I'm looking for people that in making sales for my company also have character and integrity and don't want to sell at all cost, which means that they're not willing to sell while making compromises. They have enough strength of character to follow the values of the company. So you test that out with people. There's sometimes you employ people, they're really smart. They have the skills and everything, but their character is awful. I will fire a man for character, but on the other hand, I will employ for character and train for skills. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you can have the best skills and not get the job.
Ignite, from dreams to reality.
What do I like? I like what I do. I like going on holiday with my family. And I like my car. I like gadgets. And I like my bank.
If your bank were us, you would like us too. Since 1894, we have built a strong and stable financial institution based on insightful local know-how, global reach, and a commitment to deliver to you world-class innovative solutions. First Bank, truly the first.
Ignite, from dreams to reality.
It's different things that come into play when the employer is deciding whether to employ people with experience or to take people that are green, and so many things. And you must have decided in advance what your goal is. That's why planning, having an HR plan is important. But more important is having a business plan, having a vision of your business beyond the first day.
Yeah.
Having a sense of what you want to do in the first year, so that by the time you're employing your first staff, you know that it can serve your purpose and your goal beyond just an immediate solution to your problem. And if you are not sure what you need yet, don't commit to long-term employment. Employ temporary staff who serve you for a specific purpose for a short period, and when they've proven themselves, you can determine better if you need them on a longer term.
Just to reiterate what Mrs. Awoshika has just said about personality and skill, you can train people when it comes to a skill deficit, but when it comes to a character deficit, it's, especially if the person is already an adult, you know, it has to take some really drastic things happening for a person to actually change behavior. So I just want to buttress the point she just made, that go for personality because it's more enduring and more long-standing than the skill, because the skill you can always train, or you can always hire someone else, or you can always, if you have the skill yourself, it takes a very short time to cross-train someone. But when it comes to behavior, you know, it becomes almost impossible. So to the second question, you were saying that how do you justify paying someone who is doing 3 different things, and then the person who is doing 1 thing? Well, usually, if you had done your plan, you would already know what the salary for the 3 people are. You may not necessarily want to multiply it by 3 and pay that person times 3. But if the person, you would have looked at what the responsibilities are across board and work out a fair remuneration for that person for that particular time. But the problem with doing something like that is that when you then hire somebody and split the role up, you cannot now deduct from the person's salary. So my advice is that you work out a salary that is fair, but at the same time is not so much that when you need to split the role up, you are in trouble. So that's the way to look at it. So it's difficult for me to say to you that this is what is justifiable or this is not, because it's all down to the financials of your organization and what you can afford. Then the final question, I think what you were talking about is a kind of apprenticeship.
You have a problem finding the right people at graduate level. Yeah,
Yes.
Like I explained with our security door business, you must face the reality of your own industry. You are a graduate, you're a mechanical engineer, and you're an auto mechanical engineer, and you're practicalizing it. Now, it's not every auto mechanical engineer that wants to work with cars because they think you're a mechanic. Mm-hmm. That's their problem, because you can be a multi-millionaire mechanic.
Look down on
I'm a carpenter, and I'm happy to be one. Now, what you need is, first and foremost, you might still find some graduate auto mechanic engineers who are willing to work. That's one. On the other hand, if you are happy to take the O-levels people you've talked about, and you can train them and build them up, that's fine. Another thing is, you can employ someone who has no auto mechanic engineering to interface as the customer service person. Because your problem is when you're away working for your customer, the people that work with vehicles in your workshop can't handle customers. That automatically tells you need somebody else to handle the role. And if you search hard enough, you might find one that combines both roles. But on the other hand, having a pretty young woman who faces the customer will not be bad for the business. Mm-hmm. So, just...
My name is Ibukun Oluwalawa, Creative Director of BB Couture. You mentioned training your staff if they don't have the necessary skills. Now, how do you guard against training people, and after they've acquired all the skills, they leave you when you need them the most?
I have to admit that in this environment, because we don't have very strong legislation or institutions that guard against copyright and intellectual property, especially if you are in the creative business, it becomes a bit risky how much of the skill you are letting out. So what I would say, especially based on an experience that a friend of mine had, just as an aside, I had a friend who had wanted to go into like some confectionery business, and she had this recipe. So she had gone and hired, I think, about 30 people. She actually went to hire them from outside Nigeria, and she started her business. And then before she knew what was happening, she now started seeing her products being sold on Maryland, Mobolaji Bank Anthony, and she was wondering what was going on. But at the end of the day, she found out that after work, they would basically make some of her products and sell to just about anyone. So what she then did to reduce that risk factor was she started to divide the roles in such a way that you don't have one person who knows the entire process, the entire value chain. And obviously, if you are in the creative business, there's usually what your unique selling point is, whatever it is. I would say in this environment, you would probably want to keep that unless you have some legislation or some law that helps you to protect it, and you can. But if you don't have that, just make sure that what you are letting out does not allow the person to be able to copy your product across the chain. That's the advice that I would give.
To add to your question of training people and them leaving, it's a real risk. But let's put it this way. You can never lose 100%. But you should never allow the risk factors inherent in your business to stop you from moving. Because you gain nothing from saying, oh, I'm not going to train anybody, because every time you train people, people will go. It means you must be better at selecting the types of people that you choose. First and foremost, when you look at the personality, if you know that what the business you're in involves developing people and having to rely on them a lot over time, don't choose the smartest people. I'm serious. When you're interviewing, when I say that, I don't mean take fools. I just mean when you look at the personality of the people, you know the ones that will not stick.
Yes.
That's the truth. For my security door business, every time we need 4 engineers, we will take 8. Why? We will lose the smartest ones to the telcos. Because same skills that we need to service our security doors are the same skills they use in their business. And it's when we have given them the exposure and the knowledge that they become attractive to them as well. Because now they have something to sell. Apart from the fact that as our competitors emerged in the market, is our people they go after. Because we invest heavily in training our people. But what you do is, when you look at the people, you look at their skills, you identify that 10 guys have the skills. I now move from skills to the personality of the people. Some look more stable. By nature, they're not aggressive. So which means they're not looking for the extra 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. They're as a flight risk, the risk factor is less. So you check all of those things. I look at the man who has a family and he has high needs. I look at your lifestyle, and you know, you can tell a lot from their body language, from interviewing in depth and asking some questions. You will see the guys, and I can tell you for that industry, between the BSc guys and the HND guys, the HND guys are more humble. Yeah. That's the honest truth. So there's a general, you must go a little further to identify the nature of the people. Sometimes even nationalities or tribes. Because certain people exhibit certain traits a lot more. It's your responsibility to protect your business. And training is a lot of investment. And when you do that, you also then make sure you pay them. If someone has been trained and is valuable to you, pay him well. Because the cost of retraining is high. 2, The fact that someone wants to leave does not mean you should let him leave.
Go.
How? If I've invested a lot in you and you want to leave tomorrow, I will have an interview with you and find out why. I will deal with you if I believe you're useful, you're valuable, and you're a good asset to keep. Whatever it is that is taking you out, if it's worth my while, and it would add value to my business and I can afford it, I will do it. Yeah. But however, if I find that you are a money-driven person, even if I offer you 10 times the salary, the next time you get 50,000 more, you will still go. Yeah, exactly. So I won't bother to keep you. So you will lose some. It's reality. The laws do not even when they sign the bond, there's a limit to how you can enforce it. So we found out. So do the best you can, build up skills, and continue to build. And where you have the capacity, build excess capacity. So that as they go, you replace. But you get better at selecting your people. Look for more matured, more stable people for areas like that. And treat them well. Because it makes sense always to treat your workers well. And the rest you're going to have to trust to God.
That's true.
Ignite, from dreams to reality. We hope you've enjoyed this session of training. Next week, we'll be back with a full session of interactive discussions and much more. Send in your comments, questions, and shoutouts to our Facebook page, facebook.com/IgniteTV, Twitter/IgniteTVNG, and check out our website, www.ignite-tv.com